Alright, so in our previous video, we were able to get to this particular place. Here we had our site looking much more better and not as plain as before. Okay, so first of all, let's get rid of this space. So this is just a padding. Let me see. This should be part of the starter template. So let's start by removing that part out. That's in the layouts, sorry, that's in the CSS. So let's see the CSS for that, and should be right here. Right, so we need to remove this padding, no longer need it. It's part of the original template. We have modified ours a bit. So let's see that. Alright, so far so good. Now what you want to do is you want to protect certain routes. So we want that, for example, you cannot see this route unless you are logged in. Now user registration and authentication is a really big topic. So for us, we're just gonna cover the most common use case. The first thing we really need is a user. So to get there, we can make use of the default configurations that come with Laravel. Do that. All we need to do is we need to check out what that is. So we can check out our migrations. Right? So there we go. So we have a way of password resets. That's the first thing. Second thing, we have a way of creating users. So what you're gonna do, we're gonna run these migrations. So you're gonna come right here and run the migrations. Right, so now that has created a table for us. Right? Now once we have those tables created, we still need to create our users. So this is we've just basically created the schema. So you can quickly see that by going into our MySQL table. And seeing it, okay. So this was the database. Now you can see the table that have been created. So now we have a new users table and a passwords resets table. However, there should be nothing in either of these tables. Right, so that's nothing. So now what you want to do, you want to create a new user. So now there's a nice way of working with your application even without creating any routes, and that's by using something called Tinker. So when you run PHP Artisan Tinker, which you can actually look at the documentation for it, just see what it does. Right? So as you can see, if you use Tinker, it helps you to interact with your application. This is how it is. So you can interact with any object in your application, and Laravel will work with it just as it would in the normal course of your application. So this is really useful in development time, and even in production when you want to know how your particular application is doing. Right? So once we get here, all we now need to do is we need to bring in our user. So we're going to create a new user. So you can see that Laravel by default has a model for user. So let's just close this one out. So it already comes with a model for user, which has a table users, and it has a fillable property name, email, and password. So this basically allows us to create the object using the create method and passing in an array. We'll talk about that later. So the idea here is we want to create a certain user. So here we go. So first go right here. Let's see if this user is in any namespace. Yes, it's a namespace app. So we just need to come with our database here. So we need to create a new user. So as we have noted, the user is in that namespace. That's what we need to do. Alright, so now we have a new object user. Then we want to pass in the details that are needed. So as you remember, based on this one, we had the name, the email, and the password. Right? So let's do name. So for the name, we'll go with Jendo. It's going to be our default user. And then let's have Jendo needs an email, is it? So you'll use my email so that in case we have a confirmation email that can work. So this will go to me, for example. right? Then you check out a password. Now when making a password, you have to remember that Laravel saves the password as a hash. So it's really easy for you to do that. You just need to call in this hash function, then pass in the make, then you can pass in the password. Right? So you're gonna put in a very simple password. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 5. Of course, in production, never use this. Right? So that's what's gonna get stored, and we're done. So now we need to save our user. Right? So now our user is saved. Let's see. Great. Now we have our new user. So let's get there where we have our user set. And then now we can check how we can make it such that only authorized users can see our application, can use our application.